Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast. I'm your host, Veronica Cisneros. Today, we're addressing a critically important and sensitive topic: suicide awareness and mental health challenges among high achieving women. We'll explore the hidden struggles, including how high functioning depression and substance abuse, and we'll discuss how these can often go unnoticed by even the closest people in our lives. This episode is dedicated to those who are struggling with suicidal thoughts and those who have lost a loved one. This episode is pretty near and dear to my heart. One of my childhood friends had committed suicide, and just recently, a very respected psychiatrist also took her life, which has deeply impacted the community and, of course, her family. Let's start this important conversation and learn how we can better support ourselves and each other. Understanding high functioning depression. High functioning depression isn't always visible. Many successful women manage to maintain an appearance of having it all together while internally struggling with significant mental health challenges. According to the DSM-5, symptoms of high functioning depression or dysthymia might include a depressed mood for most of the day, more days than not, and can also include poor appetite or overeating, insomnia or hypersomnia, low energy, low self-esteem, poor concentration, and feelings of hopelessness. Despite these challenges, many high achievers are particularly good at masking their struggles. Think about how often they have something to do, how often there's a task, how often there's something scheduled. Today, we delve into what high functioning depression looks like, the signs we might miss, and the ramifications of ignoring these symptoms. Let's discuss the typical day for high achieving women dealing with this type of depression. She wakes up feeling exhausted. Regardless of how much she sleeps, she goes through her day, meets deadlines, leads meetings, and appears successful. Yet internally, she's struggling to maintain her focus and often feels unworthy of her accomplishments. She struggles with connecting with her friends. She struggles with feeling misunderstood by her partner. And although she tries everything in her power to connect with her husband, she feels as if she's not enough. She struggles with opening up about this because he often complains about her workload, and she is not ready to admit that this has been too much for her. Now let's talk about the role of substance abuse. In this segment, we explore how substance abuse, including alcohol, opioids, and sleep medications, often intersects with mental health issues among high-achieving women. These substances may be used as coping mechanisms to manage stress and emotional pain, but they can exacerbate mental health problems and affect daily functioning. For example, consider a woman who ends every evening with a bottle of wine. It might start as a way to unwind, but it could signal a deeper issue if she relies on it to sleep or cope with her day. Let's examine how to recognize when this becomes a problem. Signs including increasing reliance on substances to function, neglecting responsibilities, or continuing use despite health problems. If you or someone you know is hiding bottles, lying about consumption, or has expressed concern of their drinking habits, these could be red flags indicating the need for intervention. I had a few clients that would say, yeah, I drink a bottle of wine, but that's what I do to unwind. I've asked them, what does alcohol represent? And most of the time, they have replied with a feeling of just getting away, a feeling of escape. If you have blacked out, if you have maybe gotten a DUI, or maybe your partner has threatened divorce, these are red flags to look at. Yeah, sure, you can make things better by not drinking for a week. But if you struggle to maintain sobriety, maybe it's time to seek professional help. And I get it, seeking professional help is really difficult, especially as a high achieving woman. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'd rather you do it now than you not be here for your children, you not be there for their wedding days, you not be there to watch them grow. And I know, it's not that big of a deal until it is one. Then what? Let's go ahead and dive into unmet mental health needs. Despite advancements in mental health awareness, many high achieving women face barriers to accessing the health care they need. Today, we discuss the stigma that still exists around mental health and how it prevents women from seeking help. For instance, a successful lawyer, let's say, might avoid therapy due to fears that acknowledging her mental health issues could undermine her professional image or lead colleagues to question her capabilities. This stigma can make it incredibly difficult for women to reach out for the help they desperately need. We also talk about the critical need for addressing these unmet mental health needs and how doing so can change lives. Listen, I get it. Being able to go ahead and open up and say, I need help. Finding the time to schedule an appointment. Yeah, it's hard, especially when you struggle to go ahead and find the time to eat lunch, find the time to go to the restroom. And yet I'm here to tell you, you need to do it anyway. You need to do it anyway. The rates of suicide right now are ridiculously crazy. I'm going to go ahead and look up right now rates of suicide in the US. From 2000 to 2020, more than 800,000 people died by suicide in the United States, with males representing 78.7% of all suicides that happened between 2000 and 2020. In 2022, a record high of 49,500 people died by suicide, while the suicide rate in 2022 reached its highest level since 1941 at 14.3 per 100,000 persons. What country has the suicide rate? South Korea. Which US city has the highest suicide rate? For now, Las Vegas has the highest rate of suicide in America at a rate of 34.5 per 100,000 people annually. Sin City scores over 3 times above the national rate, which is of 10.7. What jobs have the highest rate in the US of suicide? The 2021 suicide rate among U.S. persons of working age is approximately 33% higher than it was 2 decades ago. Major industry groups with the highest suicide rate include mining, construction, other services, arts, entertainment, and recreation, and agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting. What is the CDC suicide rate? Well, age ranges from 35 to 44, it's at 18.7 per 100,000. For ages 25 through 34, it is at 19 per 100,000. For those between the ages of 15 to 24, it is at 13.6 per 100,000. And for those ages 10 to 14, yes, 10 to 14, it is at 2.4 per 100,000. Depression rates have gone up substantially. Anxiety rates have gone up substantially. And yet we ignore these. Over and over, we ignore them. We take a moment to honor Dr. Josephine McNary, a renowned psychiatrist whose work impacted many. Her untimely death is a stark reminder of the mental health crisis facing even those who care for our mental well-being. Ladies, as you're listening now, I want you to think about what your day-to-day looks like. You wake up in the morning with tasks. You finish the day with tasks on your mind. I get it. I get it. You are chasing after your dreams. You are chasing after your goals, and you are a badass for it. But ignoring your mental health is not something that you'll be able to sustain. Addressing mental health requires proactive and continuous efforts. In this final segment, we offer practical steps for managing mental health, including self-exploration techniques, the importance of building a supportive community, and tips for finding the right psychiatrist. Whether you prefer traditional treatments or holistic approaches, finding what works for you is key. So, self-exploration techniques, what does that look like? Well, I want you to look at your calendar. Does your calendar match your values? Honestly, I want you to look at it right now. Does your calendar match your values? When was the last time you took the entire day off without working? When is the last time you ate lunch and it was not at your desk? When was the last time you were intentional? You allowed yourself to be in the moment. When was the last time you had an anxiety attack? When was the last time you had a panic attack and you went to the hospital because you thought you were dying? There's a difference, you know. Do you find yourself numbing with alcohol, social media? Do you find yourself constantly in competition, comparing? Self-exploration techniques looks like you truly taking a look at yourself. What are you doing? How are you doing it? How are you showing up for yourself? If you were an employee, would you quit? If you were dating yourself, how long would that relationship last before they said, hell no, homegirl doesn't even let me eat. She never takes me out. She has yet to wine and dine me. Now let's walk into building a supportive community. Building a supportive community doesn't mean just having friends. Building a supportive community means that you are surrounding yourself with people or one person that you know you can rely on. You know you can have a very uncomfortable conversation with, without judgment, without criticism, without competing. And if you're unsure who those people are, well, it's time we find them. It is. It's time we start exploring who is in our circle. Do their values match our own? And if they don't, well, whose does? I've had a scare health-wise, and I'm going to admit it was really, really hard for me to pick up the phone and talk to someone. I didn't want to bother my friends because I knew that they all had family and I knew that they had kids. And so there was no way I was going to interrupt their time. There's no way I was going to burden them with this information. But yet, if they were struggling through this, oh, I'd be there in a heartbeat. So why wasn't I offering myself that same grace? What I realized was me admitting that I needed support was me admitting defeat. And I was so afraid to do that. because I could handle it. I could do it. Why not? I should be able to. This isn't that big of a deal. I'll be fine. That right there is what trips us up. And it goes from one time of needing support to another time, to another time. And then it slowly builds. I've heard many people say suicide is a selfish act. And I didn't quite understand this. I have to be honest, I never really understood it until I became a therapist and I started working with patients who were struggling with suicidal ideations. And it was then that I realized, wait a minute, this is not a selfless act. Not at all. I recognize that in your struggle, you feel as if you are a burden to other people. And the last thing you want to do is pile more on their plate. I have heard many of you say that it would just be easier if you weren't here. It'd be easier if you didn't wake up in the morning. And if those thoughts are real for you, it is time to speak to somebody, an expert that you will help. An expert that will help you, not you will help. Oh my gosh. An expert that will help you, an expert that would provide you with the skills you need so that this isn't consistent and it doesn't get worse. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to remind you that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. We've covered a lot today, from understanding high functioning depression to recognizing the role of substance abuse and the importance of accessing mental health care. If you or someone you know is struggling, I encourage you to reach out for help. Remember, you're not alone, and there are many resources available to support you. I am here for you. You can reach out to us here at Outside the Norm Counseling. Go to www.outsidethenormcounseling.com. Together, let's continue to break the stigma and support each other.